So, we all have, as human beings, moments in which we struggle, right? We have moments in which we are not sure where to go, moments of uncertainty, moments that just feel hard. And we want to get past those hard times. But if we're just looking to get past them without getting something from them, without growing from them somehow, then they're wasted hard times. Then it's wasted pain. I remember when a long while ago, my husband and I were having some serious financial issues. And there was this one moment in which I realized that I needed to do something. And I'm going to share that moment with you. It's pretty personal and it's very raw and vulnerable, even to this day. But I just wanted to share it with you. So we have two daughters, and at the time they were both little. My oldest was, I don't know, probably in elementary school, and my youngest was a toddler still. And we were, like I said, going through this very hard financial moment, and we didn't have enough food to feed our family. And when it got the hardest, I opened the fridge and I opened the pantry and I checked around, and all I could find was two chicken thighs and three small potatoes to feed a whole family. Now, as you know, I am a devout Christian. I am a big believer. And so I started praying and I said, Lord, I don't know how we got there, how we got here, how we got to this situation. And I don't know how we're going to get out of it, but I know that you're going to do something. And I know that your word says that you're not going to let my children beg for bread. So whatever it is that needs to happen now, show me. And he revealed to me how to take those two chicken thighs and those three small potatoes and turn them into a meal that not only fed all four of us, but there was enough left over for my husband to take for lunch the next day. And so the reason I'm telling you this is because we've all been through hard times in different moments, in different focuses, in different areas of our lives. And there is a way in which we can take those hard times and make them mean something. And what I want to share with you today is a 6-step approach. Well, 7 really. It's a 7-step approach that is going to help us take most of what we go through that feels hard and heavy and turn it into opportunities for growth and opportunities for service. Now, notice that I said most of what we go through. I want to recognize and acknowledge that there are situations we go through that require professional help. So what I am going to be talking about today, it's not an excuse to say, no, I am not going to go seek out that professional help that I think I might need, or no, I'm going to battle this on my own, and I'm going to take these 7 steps that Marcy taught me, and I am going to just grin and bear it and walk through this very hard situation that might require something else, right? So the first step that we're going to talk about has actually a lot to do with this, but be open to the possibility that what you're going through might just be, not just, that word was misplaced and misused, but might be something that cannot be dealt with outside of an additional support system, which might include professional assistance, right? So I wanted to make that disclaimer right off the bat before we get into the conversation. But as we go through our talk today, I want you to think about mostly things in the business and relationship arena, things that you can take responsibility for, not that you're at fault for, and we will talk a little bit more about this later, but things that you can take and assume responsibility for, and things that are within the scope of what you can touch and manage, right? So business is the main example I'm going to use, but this can transfer to finances, to relationships, to even career and things that you are trying to work through. But mostly, all the hard times that we go through that do not require professional assistance, we can walk through the 7-step process and get to the other side with new open eyes as to new possibilities and with lessons learned. So if you're ready to get into this process on how to manage your moments of struggle, then stick around. So very often we struggle because we feel like we lack something, like we don't have enough time, or we don't have enough resources, or we don't have enough support, or we don't have enough knowledge, or we are not enough. If that has been your experience and you are going through a situation where you are looking at it and thinking, I just don't have enough to get to the other side, I am not enough to do this thing, there's not enough whatever, then I have a tool that will support you in getting out of that that lack and scarcity mindset and moving into action. And it's called the crops inventory, and it's completely free. So if you would like a copy of the crops inventory, just send me a DM on Instagram. Find me on Instagram at marcy.amaro and send me a DM that says crops, CROPS, and you will get instantly sent to your DM the link to get this free resource. So again, there's no reason for you to stay stuck in the I'm not enough or I don't have enough. There's no reason for you to live in the scarcity and the lack. There is a way for you to move past those feelings and get into action. And the way starts with the crops inventory. Go find me on Instagram at marcy.amaro and send me a DM that says crops, and it will be sent right to your inbox. All right. So, as I was saying at the beginning, we are going to be looking at this from a business perspective, but of course, it can be applicable to pretty much anything that you might be going through that is not severe enough to require professional attention, all right, or professional assistance. So, the first step, I'm sorry about that. The first step is awareness. And here's what I was talking about before, right? So, being truly present to your thoughts, your emotions, your sensations, your concerns, your worries, your fears, even your posture, being fully conscious and bringing that sense of presence, right? Of being there, of noticing everything that's going on in you. It's the very first step because most of the time we fall into fight, flight, or freeze. Or we go into survival mode because our sensations, our emotions, what we're experiencing in our body is so overwhelming that we shut down our prefrontal cortex. And I'm not going to get into all the science, but our emotions tend to hijack or take over the part of us that is rational. So awareness is the first piece. And I want you to start with what is most obvious, right? What are you feeling in your body? What are the emotions, the sensations that you're experiencing? What posture are you assuming? Are you slouching down? Are you crawling? Are you whatever it is that you're doing in your body? Become really keenly aware of those sensations because those are the ones that are going to stop you from being able to move forward if you don't acknowledge them and if you are not aware enough of them to see what you can do about them, right? We have tons of thoughts that run almost automatically, almost on autopilot when we experience certain sensations. So it's important to bring awareness to those thoughts. And in doing that, in bringing awareness and stopping yourself and going, wait, I'm experiencing a lot of stuff in my body right now. Let me check and see what it is. Because I know this thing is tough and I know this thing is causing me harm and I know this thing has the potential to make my business suffer or make my relationship suffer or make me suffer in some way. So let me stop for a second and really become keenly aware of what I'm experiencing. And as you do that, check with yourself. Is this something that has been going on for a long time that you have just been kind of suppressing and putting aside and ignoring? Is this something that is recurring, that happens a lot, like every day or at least 2 or 3 times a week and happens constantly and you feel these sensations and you are in this set of emotions all the time or a lot of the time? Is this something that is so overwhelming that the moment you start trying to pay attention to it, you just shut down or you go into panic or you go into this set of violent reactions where you just want to hurt yourself or you don't see a way out? If you get into any of those extreme sensations where you just can't get past or you can't even really get into exploring and examining what they are without getting overloaded and overwhelmed, this is a red flag. This is a trigger. Go find professional help, right? But if you are able to face what it is that you're experiencing, to take a breath or two and stop and say, okay, what is it that I am feeling? What is it that's going through my head right now? Can I take out a sheet of paper or a journal and start writing down everything that I'm experiencing? If you can get yourself to a space where you can do that without feeling like you just need to fight, flight, or freeze, then you're ready to go through the next steps in this process. But again, if at the beginning, when you are just bringing awareness to your sensations, when you are becoming conscious and present and noticing what it is that you're experiencing in your body, in your mind, in your being, if you cannot manage that, if you cannot even get through this part without completely collapsing or breaking down, go get some help. Right now, if you are able to get to the stage and Write them down, or at least notice them enough to where you go, okay, I am experiencing a tingling sensation in my stomach. I'm experiencing tightness in my chest. I feel my head throbbing. I am thinking, this is it. This is the end. I'm going down. There's no way out. I'm thinking that I'm always such a loser and I always do these things. Then, even though it feels horrible, and even though it feels like, oh my gosh, I could use some help, you should still get the help if you feel that. But you can still, if you can bring yourself enough calmness and enough focus to do this part, the awareness part, without completely breaking apart, then you can go through the next steps. All right. And the second one is to separate fact from interpretation. Now, the interpretation is the story piece, right? So in reality, I'm asking you to separate fact from story. We all have stories that come up almost instantaneously after we experience something. And it's important to separate the facts, what is really going on, from the stories we're telling ourselves. Because if we cannot separate that, we're going to let the stories, for the most part, drive the ship. We're going to allow those stories to dictate how we feel moving forward, how we act moving forward, and the possibilities that we see in the situation. So it's important to ask yourself, what did I see and what did I hear? So, what were the objective things that anybody looking at it from the outside would have seen the same things and would agree that they happened, right? So, you are in a situation where your sales aren't advancing, and the story you're telling yourself is, what I have to offer is not valuable. What I have to offer sucks. People don't want to hear what I have to say, and people don't care for what I have to offer. Well, anybody looking at it from the outside might simply see numbers dropping, right? And an offer that has sold in the past. And they might hear that you are running out of options or feel like you're running out of options, right? Like they might hear and see certain things that are separate from your interpretation of it. There might be some truth to your interpretation, but there might be no truth to your interpretation. It's just what your system is feeding you so that you can process and understand and give meaning to the things that you're experiencing to the circumstances. So the first step is to separate, right? Separate what you can actually see or hear, what an outsider looking in would also see. Anything that does not fall into that is a story, and those stories get to be removed for the moment and tested later, right? The next step is curious inquiry, and this is what is going to help us get to the bottom of where we really are at, what we really have in front of us, and what's really possible moving forward. So, this is key. And this is going to be very uncomfortable. It's not going to be easy, but I'm going to run through a series of questions and I invite you to re listen or re watch so that you can look at these questions and ask yourself these questions in the moment, right? So after you've separated fact from story, then ask yourself this about the facts, right? About the facts mostly. If there are stories that keep popping up, there are some questions that can apply, but focus mostly on the facts. So the first one is, how else can I see this? How else can I see these facts? What other interpretation can there be? The second, what evidence or proof do I have that this is what's happening? So, what factual things, what stats, what numbers, what things that are tangible can I pull that serve as evidence of or proof that this is really what is happening? So, this is really the facts as they stand for anybody who comes and looks at them. You might even bring someone else in that you trust and say, okay, what do you see here? What do you see going on? Right? And ask them for the facts that they perceive. The third one, would someone else with a different set of experiences, skills, or preparation see it in a similar way? So, again, if you have someone that you can bring in, this is awesome. If not, just put yourself in the place of someone that you know, someone that you trust, someone that's successful in what you're trying to achieve, and ask yourself if they would see it in the same way, or if you can see other alternatives that they might bring into a situation. The next one, what else could this mean? What else could this mean? So, not just how else can I see this, but what else could this mean, right? Because your stories are interpretations, they're meant to give meaning. So, what other meaning can you assign to what you're seeing in front of you? Instead of seeing it as a flop, can you see it as data for improvement? Instead of seeing it as sales just dropping because you suck, can you see it as maybe your audience needs something else that you're missing, that you don't have yet, but that you could find, right? So, what else could this mean? What could I have done differently? So, as you're looking at the facts, it's important to take responsibility and it's important to take ownership, not in the fault and blame element, but in the owning it element. So, what can I own from this? How did I contribute to this? What could I have done differently? If it happens again or something similar happens again, what could I do differently? Right? What part might I have played in this, right? Again, that's the responsibility piece. And that's really important because the opposite of responsibility is victim. And as long as you're operating from a victim mindset, you are subject to being tossed around and being manipulated and managed by outside forces and outside things. How did it start? How did this start? Now, this is not a blame game, right? So you're not looking for who caused it. You're looking for how did it start? How far back can I look and see signs that this was starting? And this is so that you can have enough awareness to see, okay, this is what triggered it, or this is what might have triggered it. And this is how I can prevent this in the future, but this is also how I can eliminate that cause or shift that cause to something else. What would be an ideal outcome or resolution to the situation? So, right now, it might not be a matter of making more money. It might be a matter of not losing any more money, right? It might not be a matter of shifting your entire program. It might be a matter of adding a bonus or a module, right? So, what would be an ideal resolution or outcome to the situation? Next, what benefit can I see in this? So, as I look at it objectively, what can I see in this that might actually turn out to be a blessing in disguise, that might actually turn out to be a good thing? Right now, notice that nowhere in these questions is there a why question. Why questions are unhelpful, they're detrimental, they're going to send you on a tailspin, and they're not going to help. So, don't ask yourself any why questions until you are more experienced in doing this process. Stick to the questions that I'm giving you. Again, go back, rewatch, re-listen, write them down so that you can actually have these questions handy when you're in a situation where you're like, okay, I can't see a way out. I'm feeling stuck. I'm feeling lost. This is the set of questions that you want to turn to, right? So the next step is release, release. And this is a brainstorm element, right? So based on the information that you gathered during the inquiry process, while you were being curious and asking yourself all these questions and being brutally honest with yourself, based on that information, what possible next steps can you see? You're going to take out a piece of paper, you're going to set a timer for at least 10 minutes, no more than 15, and you're going to write down all the answers that pop to your mind to this question. What possible next steps can I see? You're not going to judge them. You're not going to weigh whether they are possible or not. You're not going to stop them, no matter how ridiculous or impossible they may seem. You're going to write down every possible answer that comes to your head when it comes to what possible next steps can I see now. And remember, you just went through an entire inquiry process. So if you were really honest and really open with yourself and you got really curious as you were answering those questions, you probably came up with a bunch of ideas in that inquiry process already. It's just a matter of distilling them and putting them in one place. Now, after you're done with your brainstorming, 10, max 15 minutes, you're going to give yourself some space before you go to step 5, which is the elimination stage, right? The elimination step. And you're going to give yourself some time, at least 10 minutes, preferably an hour, before you go back and look at your brainstorm. The reason for this is when you write something down and it's really fresh, your brain is going to still add interpretation to the words. So it's going to add to it what you thought you meant, right? So you need to separate your emotion and the sensations and what you were thinking and going through when you wrote those things so that you can see other possibilities in it. So after you give yourself that space, you're going to do 3 things in this elimination stage. You're going to read through everything that came up and you're going to eliminate. So anything that is not feasible or that you have already tried and didn't work or that you don't have the resources for, right? So anything that you know is really not going to work right now, you're going to eliminate it, right? So you're going to cross it out. Then you're going to consolidate. That's the second thing. So very often in the brainstorming process, we come up with things that are very, very similar or that one requires the other and they go hand in hand. So in the consolidate process, you're going to put together anything that could be done as one or that one thing relies on the other or things that are very, very similar that could almost mean the same thing, right? And then finally, you're going to expand. So anything that's left or anything that feels as a possibility after you've gone through the eliminate and consolidate pieces, you're going to expand on, okay, so what would that look like? What would it require? What would be a good first step in getting this started? Where would I even start to get information about it if I don't know what to do with it, right? So you're going to expand it and kind of chunk it into the pieces that go into it. Then you're going to go into step 6, which is a hypothesis or your initial test. Now, if you've ever done any kind of experiment, like maybe for the science fair, you know that scientists begin with a hypothesis. It's something that they're going to test. It's what they think is going to happen at the end of the test. And they start the test from the perspective that their hypothesis is true. So they're doing everything that they can to prove that their hypothesis is true. So you're going to create a statement of something that you're going to work towards proving as true. So say that our scenario of our sales dropping is what you're testing. Then your brainstorm came up with a bunch of things, but one that seemed really feasible was that you need to add a bonus that addresses a particular concern, a question that you're getting often from your customers and from your potential customers, from your leads. So your hypothesis is if I add a bonus that addresses X, my sales will go back up. If I add a bonus to my offer that addresses X concern, my sales will go up. Now, this is not set in stone. This is not something that means you're done once this is done. And it doesn't have to be perfect, right? But what you're going to do is use this as your testing starting point. So everything from this moment on is going to be, okay, how do I prove that adding this bonus is going to increase my sales? Maybe you make a couple of phone calls or send a couple of emails or texts or DMs asking the people who didn't buy, if I were to add this bonus, would this entice you to get the offer? If I were to offer this as part of my program, would that be enough to get you to say yes? Right? It might be going to your current clients and saying, would this be valuable? It might be just conducting a survey. It might be, I don't know, many different things that you can do, but you're going to start seeing if you can prove that this statement is true. And you're going to keep going until one, either you prove that it is and you see the results, or two, you've given it a good hearty try for a reasonable amount of time and you see that you need to go back to what you expanded on and see what other options you might have. So step 7 is actually to repeat as needed. So you might need to go back to this process several times, but don't jump from one option to the next without giving it a good hearty try and approaching it from the perspective of proving that what you decided is your hypothesis is true. So again, here are the steps. So you're going to start with awareness. Then you're going to separate fact from story or interpretation. You're going to go into curious inquiry. Then you're going to release and do your brainstorm. Step 5 is eliminating. So you're going to eliminate, consolidate, or expand the options that you came up with in your release. And then you're going to create a hypothesis or initial testing option that you're going to work to prove right. And you're going to repeat as needed. Now, I hope this has been helpful. I know that this is a lot in a short period of time. So if you want more support, more encouragement, more accountability in any of these processes, don't forget I'm here for you. Just go to marciamaro.com and there's a bunch of options there on how to work with me, how I can support you. Just look through them and let me know how I can help you. Go to Instagram at marci.amaro and follow me and DM me and just be in there with me. I give you a lot of tips and ideas in there as well. And don't forget to tune in again next week to the next episode of Sincerely Speaking. Share it with someone you love, and we'll see you next time right here.